At eRoad, we believe fleet management doesn't have to be problematic. It should be effortless, connected, and future-ready for your heavy-duty operation. With a reliable, accurate technology solution, you can elevate your fleet's performance, improve productivity across your business, monitor events as they happen, and reduce costs and downtime. Get on the road to better fleet management and safer, more productive operations. Go beyond the basics and visit eroad.com today.
Welcome to Running on Ice, the coolest community in freight. I'm your host, Mary O'Connell, bringing you the latest tech updates, warehouse news, and everything happening in the cold chain world. Not only is there the coolest show in freight, but there's also Running on Ice, the newsletter that could not be colder. You can subscribe to that on freightwaves.com/runningonIce. Today, we welcome Venu Guttapalli, CEO and co-founder of Tag and Track. Welcome to the show, Venu.
Nice for having us. Thank you. Very excited to chat about what we are doing and give some insights to the industry, what we can offer.
I love it. Before we are getting into kind of that embedded sensor technology today, which is kind of arguably one of the cooler developments to come out in the cold chain lately. Pun accidentally intended. But before we get too far into that, let's get some background on you and why you started Tag and Track.
So my background is all in, worked a lot in semiconductor space, in the wireless semiconductors, doing a lot of smartphones, location technology within the smartphone, and did all the first generation IoT, like connected light bulbs, connected thermostats, and things like that. Then after 20 plus years at Qualcomm, I wanted to do a little bit more something in the enterprise space. And I was trying to figure out what problems I can solve with my background. And then I picked up the supply chain visibility and real-time visibility, inventory management, warehouse inventory side, and then the transportation visibility side. And that's where we came up with how can we modernize that space, because most of the industry is still using this 25 plus years old barcode scanning and printing, paper labels, and there are multiple scans happening through the supply chain. And I was like, maybe we could do something with that and see if we can transform that piece of the puzzle. And that's how we started with Tag and Track. And from there, it's been 4.5 years now, and we're doing pretty good.
I mean, to say that you didn't want people to keep existing on a 25-year-old technology, I mean, what a legendary action. If your technology is old enough to drink, I think it's safe to say it's probably time to update it.
Yeah, that's what it is. Maybe it's time to update it and see if we can move a little bit more forward. This whole automation, and also, how you acquire data, how you manage that data in real time, rather than very passive and outdated data that comes into your systems, and you're not able to make any additions in real time. So that's what we're trying to change with this technology.
Which arguably is very important, especially in the world of cold chain and temperature sensitive things, because you need to know if you're about to get stuck in a snowstorm, or if you're about to, you need the real time data to know, okay, I'm going to get stuck in a snowstorm, or I'm going to, this has been delayed at customs for too long, or like this reefer unit is not keeping things at a specific temperature. We need to know what's going on. It's something that someone once said, and it's kind of like you just are giving a voice to your shipment while what's happening when it's not in your hands. And if you, just like when someone else has a problem, you want to know when something bad is happening.
That's correct. Yes.
So when it comes to how things are kind of done in the cold chain, we know that the cold chain and temperature sensitive goods they're really going through kind of this huge growth period, this huge transformative period where we're taking things out how it's traditionally been done and moving it towards something that is a little more modern, a little more efficient, a little more real-time data heavy, as you mentioned. What are some of those blind spots that people are having in the traditional way of doing things that maybe haven't migrated over or kind of adapted some of this newer technology or newer way of doing things? What are some of those blind spots that people are having, kind of in the past, or if that the current, if that's their life?
Yeah, so I think if we look at the past or even current, still 80% of the pharma cold chain shipments still use passive loggers. So passive loggers means these are USB sticks. You put it in your laptop, you configure it, then you drop it into the shipment. Then the other side, somebody has to pick up that USB stick, put it back into your laptop and pull a file out of it to say it's in compliant or not compliant. But there are two problems with it, right? One is if you're a customer who is moving 200 outbound shipments a day or 400 shipments a day, that means somebody need to do 400 times USB logger stick configuration. Then there's somebody on the receiving side need to do 400 times take the USB and read the data. That's the first problem. It's already is a lot of work. And then if you multiply that into thousands of shipments, and if every one of that shipment is manually getting monitored with a very passive data, that's a lot of manual steps that they're doing. All the data is offline data. You cannot even use that data for advanced AI models in for the future. This data is all waste data. It's just sitting there for nothing. The second problem they do have is they right now run two different systems. One for running their traceability, which is a regulatory need to do track and trace on every vial, every secondary package, tertiary package, all the way to the pallet level. And then you need to track this end to end. That's one part of the regulatory need. The second part of the regulatory need is how to monitor the temperature of it. So the way we are envisioning this is that why do you need two systems? Can I combine these into one system where we can embed the label with the sensor, then you print your traceability code on the same label, and you also embed the temp sensor into the same label, and you now stick that onto the pallet. And at that point, these are active labels. That means you don't need to do the USB stick, configure it, do traceability code scanning. Now you're merging all these systems into one single place, and the data is coming to you in real time. The pharma, the shipper, who is the owner of the pharmaceutical, he can actually deploy this from his GMP and then get the data into his system. Right now, the third problem they have is even the data, if they go real time visibility, even the data that they get is not their data. It's fragmented through the supply chain. So they have to enable another data aggregator on top who will collect their own data and then bring it back to one place. And then they have to pay for their getting their own data. So there are three problems we're trying to solve with one solution where we're trying to pull all this together into one platform. And we are trying to be the data acquisition platform for pharma so that if they deploy this, they're solving three problems with one implementation.
I was already annoyed with this process when you said if there was 400 shipments a day, you would have to take out 400 USBs and plug them in, and someone's entire job would just be to move files from a USB to a computer and then probably like upload them somewhere or copy
Upload
and
into
paste them.
some portal. That's correct.
Exactly. Or copy and paste it in a freaking Excel sheet and send it to somebody where they would upload it into it. That I'm already so frustrated because there is so many better uses of that person's time than sitting there and just dragging files over and pressing upload, upload, upload. So for one, I'm very happy that you guys have decided to come in and solve this, because the other problem that you mentioned, which was if you have this data, you want to get it, you have to pay another service to take all of your data just so you can access the things that are happening. And then me as a pharmaceutical shipper, if I have to wait for my shipment to get delivered and then wait for someone to click and drag it over, for it to get uploaded, and then for this other thing to go get it, that means I'm working with possibly 2-day old data, like, or a day old at like the fastest. And that doesn't seem like something that is a good thing in pharmaceuticals, where like if you fall out of temperature or you lose compliance, or what if there's a damage that occurs, it's not just like, oops, we lost some genes. It's like, oops, we might have opened someone up to risk of death.
That's correct. So that's the biggest challenge they have is they're not able to intercept because they don't have the data to say when to intercept. Because if the damage is already done, they don't even know that it's out of spec until it reaches the destination. Then somebody take the USB stick and says red light or a cross mark that says not okay. At that time, the damage is already done. You have to dispose of that whole product. Instead, if you have a way to know that, can I measure the ambient? Can I measure the payload temperature? And if I know the box metrics, I can actually predict ahead of time that, hey, this can still go even if there's delay. There is enough temperature thermal battery exists for this box to be delivered to the end customer and still be in compliance, right? Or if it is going to run out of thermal battery because there are delays in the shipment, you can either intercept it and say, hey, bring it back, or put it back into the storage to bring it to a known temperature in the middle of the transit point, then deliver it when it is again has enough thermal battery to go back into the shipment. So these are the things that you can now implement, and we see that some of the customers are embracing this, and they're already putting some solutions to digitize this part and bring more predictive risk analysis and try to do this. But that is very low percentage of the tier one pharmas that have not adapted yet. Out of the 200 plus big to medium pharmaceutical companies, probably only 1% or 2% are starting to do digital transformation and putting this type of more modern technologies. But the remaining are all waiting and watching to see how this evolves. But we expect this to take off much faster pace in the next coming years.
Well, I mean, it's got to, because if you start seeing all the success that your competition's having and you're still sitting there waiting days to get your results of things, and then also like you said, on the predictive side, by knowing what's going on, because we look here, we like drivers. We don't necessarily like to bash them, but they are humans. They do make mistakes. Sometimes if you go to set your reefer temperature, you don't hit continuous, you just say hit that button, and then it just kicks on and off, on and off, on and off. But if you see that an hour into a shipment that it like the power comes on and then it goes off, if you see that, then that's a really simple fix. That's not, oh, I have to wait for my product to get there in 300, 400 miles. It's a pick up the phone and say, hey driver, can you hop out at the next refuel, and or like
Then
whenever it's a safe
stabilize,
location
yeah,
for you,
stabilize your temperature.
correct your reefer unit and move on. That was one phone call that saved possibly tens of thousands of dollars of product.
That's correct. Which otherwise you might have to discard off because your TOR, time out of refrigeration, is out of bounds and it's out of the stability period. Then you might say, hey, product is no good anymore. It's already out of temperature bound. But if you have real-time visibility and you're monitoring this data, both the payload data and how much distance is left to get to the destination, you can definitely do some corrective actions with more embracing the real-time visibility and getting this data to make decisions in on time.
And that the fact that you can do that and not only improve patient outcomes, improve the effectiveness of your drugs, but also reduce the loss of your own product. I don't know. It might just be me introducing logic into a situation where we don't need to introduce logic, but it seems pretty stupid to not do that.
Yep, that's what I think. The shippers, the logistic vendors, they're all now realizing that for the cost of the product and the effort it takes to do all the compliance SOPs and move this product and not to get it delivered in right time and right temperatures is, now it's just a loss of effort. Not only loss of product, now all this effort you put in to get it there and it's useless at the end point is moot for a lot of 3PLs. So even the 3PLs are now actively pushing real-time visibility and add value add services. So for us, what we do, that's why is we look at both sides of the coin. Is the pharma wants to implement it, we go approach the pharma company and say, hey, you want to go fully implement the digital solution and build your control tower, advanced analytics. Or sometimes we go to the 3PL and say, hey, you're moving all the pharma goods in a cold chain product. You want to implement our technology into your offering as a value add service and then give that to the like the pharmaceuticals, right? Then they can say, hey, yeah, on my lane, please implement real-time visibility, and I want the data to be real time. I want to know where my losses are, which lanes have inefficiencies, so I can go fix them, right? So that it's a both sides. We see that there's now the little bit more motion, and people are now trying to go in this direction of more real-time visibility and monitoring, and all this is happening now.
So you mentioned earlier that you're seeing like there's a lot of companies that are just kind of waiting to see like what happens. Like there's always those early adopters that come out with anything. And what is kind of that one differentiator, or I guess that hurdle that a lot of those companies are like, we're going to wait and see. Is it truly just kind of fear of the unknown, or is it just they don't want to make the investment if it's not necessarily worth it? What is that like big hurdle that you're seeing that's causing those people to not necessarily jump to be like early to mid adopters and just kind of wait?
So the main thing why they're not moving fast is first the bigger pharmacies have a much stricter SOP and a stricter quality approval process. So for them to embrace a new system and then deploy this across their lanes, because for a tier one pharmacy would have manufacturing to the distribution, then from distribution to the last mile, then from last mile to the pharmacy or to the patient or to the doctor. So they have three different legs, how the product should move through these legs. And some of their lanes are pretty complex. It's worldwide. It's different hubs and spokes, and from there goes to distribution centers, from there to the last mile. So for them to embrace and change, they need to validate the system, and the validation itself takes 8 months, sometimes 12 months, sometimes 14 months. And that is the first barrier, just to make sure that the compliance is there, the quality, operational compliance is there, the quality metrics are there, and whoever vendor they choose, they can meet the audits, right? They have to hire an independent auditor to go audit the vendor for solution. So that long cycle is what prevents them to go forward, because it's a lot of time and effort. And if it doesn't meet the spec, then they're like, oh, we need to start again with another vendor from the beginning. So that creates barriers to enter. And until they want them to be some other, pharma to validate them, they get some traction, then they're like, maybe it's stabilized now. Now I can use them. So there is that. I'm not the first. I want to be the first second, right? So that is what is the some of the risk averseness that brings this technology to go faster.
I forgot about the whole like year of testing and compliance to make sure that it actually is worthwhile, because the last thing you want after that is to go through all of that and then realize that it's not actually going to work and it's not compliance. And then you're back at square one and you've wasted a year of everyone's time and money, um, which is kind of expensive. But in theory, if you're being able to make it so that way that one person doesn't have to move 400 files off of a flash drive and they can be used doing literally anything else, you would think it kind of works out. But again, it is what it is.
Yeah,
I
it has
understand.
both sides, has advantages, disadvantages, but in the end, I think it'll go in the direction of more real-time visibility. And as a technology, even the cost structures have come down significantly, so now it's more easy to adapt this type of technology. And we're right now, we can get the system fully validated anywhere from 4 months to 8 months we can deploy, because we qualify our solution on the stack. Once we qualified it and audited and we got passed on the audits, we don't change that part of the stack anymore. We kind of control that stack, and anything that we change is only operational software. Any compliance software, the device, the sensor, the remaining stack is pretty much, we put a tight control on that so that we don't need to go through several audits to know the change control and all the version control that is required to be the CFR 21 compliance. So that's a compliance that dictates your quality.
Yep. And I like that, because if you have the base and you're like, okay, this is fine, nobody touch it. You can touch, like you can make it so that way your dashboard turns purple. That's great. But you're not touching anything here. If you want things ordered a certain way, so that way like certain columns are in different locations, wonderful. You're not like, it's kind of like you're not touching my brick house. Like,
That's correct.
stay away from it.
Yeah, that's correct. You got it right. So basically, we're trying to not to touch that part of the code that is stabilized and then passed all the audit and quality checks. We're saying keep that aside. You want to change any operational data, be fancy, as you said. I can do purple color, green color, different fancy dashboards. You can build your own dashboard. I could push the data into your dashboards, your control towers. But the compliance part, we're saying we want to be strictly maintain that quality all the way from factory. We audit, and all the way to the data coming to the cloud. We have a full audit control on those, so that helps us get the qualification faster.
So do you think that over the next few years, obviously, because it's such a long lead time to get this on board and started and approved and compliant, and ideally not breaking any regulatory measures, because those people get really mad when you break their rules. So do you think that this kind of embedded sensor technology, do you think that is going to kind of become the gold standard of compliance, maybe in 5 to 10 years after more people adopt it and it just becomes more widespread? Or do you think that there will always be a home for the passive loggers?
I think it'll, if you take a 5 to 10 year roadmap, then I believe mm, almost 90% of the pharma will move to real time, more active track and trace, and more advanced data acquisition, figure out the AI based prediction, risk analytics, interception, bring the interception rates to 0.2%, 0.1%. That is the direction that most of the pharmas will go. The second thing that's happening is the drug itself is changing from a bulk drug, more like a room temperature CRT, right? From there, they're all going to the biologics and personalized medicine, which have much stricter timelines than before, much stricter temperature monitoring, like the limits. Some are dry ice, some are 2 to 8, and some are like, the cell therapy, gene therapy, they're almost in minus 200 range, right? And these have very specific supply chain SOPs and very specific time in transit. And to maintain this type of stricter SOP, they have to adapt more advanced technologies than the passive. The passive loggers ultimately are going to be phased out in our view. I think it has done quite a bit till now, but from now on to the future, I think it has to be real-time visibility and the more active type of data acquisition.
I just don't see there. Don't get me wrong. There's always a time and a place for passive, and like there will always be a use case for it. But as a whole, especially like you said, with the rise of custom drugs and more specific things, I think it's just going to become the industry standard. It might take a minute, but I would not be surprised if this is just the new normal. I kind of hope it does, because for the
Yeah,
sake of that
yeah,
person sitting there moving files from a jump drive to a computer, please
that will
please find
definitely
them
move
something
out, and
better to do.
yeah, this is going to be the new norm in my view for the industry.
So, Vinu, we have come towards the end of our time together, but I do have one more question for you, and it's a question that everyone that has come on this show has answered.
Got it.
So without further ado, is cereal considered a soup?
Cereal considered a soup? That's a tricky question. Yeah, I believe cereal is a soup in my view. I think if I look at the texture and how I eat it, yeah, it is a soup for me. Uh,
Okay.
so yeah,
I love
I
it.
eat cereal like a soup. So
I am in the cereals, not a soup person, but I also don't put milk in my cereal. I just kind of eat it just crunchy because I love a crunch. But I know that I understand that that's weird and that's not the normal. But it's just how I like it. I like my frosted flakes with the sugar still on it. Um,
got it. Yeah, I'm a soup and milk and the cereal, and I and then I also add additional condiments to make it much better. So it is like a soup for me. So
I love it. Okay, so if anyone has any great cereal soup recipes, or if they kind of need help getting things going on out of the passive temperature loggers and into more proactive approaches, where can they find you outside the show?
you can find us at tagandtrack.ai. We have a very good LinkedIn page. We post a lot in there, a lot of updates, a lot of insights. Our website has been updated with a lot more solution approach and the industry problems. So these two are a good places to start, and we can then provide solutions to the customer.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me on the show, and it was fun chatting with you on this topic.
You can catch other episodes of Running on Ice right here on FreightWaves TV, YouTube, or anywhere you get your podcasts like Apple Podcast and Spotify. Need more Running on Ice news? No sweat. Subscribe to the newsletter on freightwaves.com/running on ice. See you on the internet.